Welcome to Critical Issues Commentary, the radio ministry of Twin City Fellowship, a non-denominational Christian church in Minneapolis. We're on the web at www.cicministry.org. This is Todd Kramasz, your host for the next half hour. I'm filling in for the vacationing Dick Kuffel. And once again, it's our pleasure to speak with Bob DeWaay, pastor of Twin City Fellowship and author of Critical Issues Commentary. Today's topic, global warming, blind faith, and global delusion, which is essentially a book review of Taken by Storm, the Troubled Science, Policy, and Politics of Global Warming. Pastor, this seems like quite a departure from our typical CICs that we're so used to reading.
Yes, it is. Normally, I'm writing about theological issues that concern what God has said in the Bible. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's what we call special revelation, what God said about himself, and so on. But there's also general revelation, and general revelation is what we can learn by looking around the world that we live in and using our rational minds, our ability to perceive and to deduce and so on. And deception can happen either on the level of special revelation, where people misinterpret the Bible.
Which is where we most often find ourselves at CIC.
Yeah, that's our main thing, and
right.
That's where we'll be back on the next issue. But I believe that this global warming has actually become almost a religion because people are believing it by blind faith. So because so many people are being deceived by this, and because we have some famous evangelical leaders like Rick Warren and so forth, Brian McLaren,
sure,
signing global warming statements, it's almost become an issue that we have to deal with, so I decided to take it on.
So these statements are essentially a pact or a vow to get with this effort to stop global warming.
Right.
Okay.
To sign on to this whole belief system that includes the idea that humans are causing global warming and that we need to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. So as we go through this book, the authors, two Canadian college professors, by the way, eminently qualified, it would appear, to discuss a topic like this. Was it published in 2002, a revised edition in 2007?
Yes, exactly. I met a Dr. E. Calvin Beisner out at a conference I was at, and he's the one who told me about this book and highly recommended it. So I went back and ordered the book, and they were working on the revised edition, so when it came out, I got it. And so the 2007 edition by authors Christopher Essex and Ross McKittrick is the one that I'm reviewing in this article.
What's the thesis? Is there an opening salvo they let us have it with?
Well, their thesis is that there's this thing called the Doctrine. They call it the Doctrine.
The Doctrine, in quotes.
The Doctrine.
Okay.
And this doctrine of certainty is what people are told to believe. So people are telling us, you must believe this. This is the way it is. And they say it's like a dogma that has to be believed or you're not a good citizen.
Believe this or you're not a good citizen. Wonderful. A lot of that going on. It's not just science. It's also religion. It's politics. You're either with us on this or you're not, and you're wrong.
Yeah, it's sort of the political correct idea.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's in fact, I list in my article about this the points of the doctrine that they outline at the beginning of the book, and then they go on to explain from a scientific perspective what we can and cannot know about future climate change. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me just list those 9 points of the doctrine of certainty. Number 1, the earth is warming. Number 2, warming has already been observed. Number 3, humans are causing it. Number 4, all but a handful of scientists on the fringe believe it. Number 5, warming is bad. Number 6, action is required immediately. 7, any action is better than none. 8, claims of uncertainty cover only the ulterior motives of individuals aiming to stop needed action. And 9, those who defend uncertainty are bad people. That's the doctrine of certainty that these two authors are talking about.
Sounds like an airtight case or doctrine.
Well, we're told that if you don't believe this, you're just out on the fringe, you're not getting with reality, or you don't care about Mother Earth, and you're a bad citizen, and you need to do something about it. See, you're the problem, Todd. You'd get in your car and you drive down the road and carbon dioxide is going in the air. Don't you feel guilty?
You're making me feel bad now, Bob. I want you to stop that. Let's go on with it.
Okay.
How do we combat this, Doctor? What sort of information have we got to argue against it?
Well, there's plenty, and this book explains it in many different ways, beginning with the science and the issues. And they even start talking about politics, and they point out that people make decisions and political decisions in a way that doesn't always mean they're in keeping with what's real or what's true. There's motivations for groups to make decisions that are pretty good at analyzing that.
Mm-hmm. What are some of their theories? Have they got any methodology that differs from the official doctrine?
Well, they begin by explaining what we know and what we can't know and why we can't know what we can't know. Now, when it comes to climate, there is a huge number of variables that all simultaneously influence what happens in climate. Okay?
Right.
And what they show is that this process that creates climate is so irreducibly complex that it's impossible to have even a climate theory. In other words, you can't write a series of mathematical equations and plug in the data, and out will come what the climate's going to be 10 years from now. It's not even possible.
Well, your local weatherman will have difficulty predicting the weather 3 days out with all of the data they've got and the historical data.
Right.
How much harder is this compared to that?
Well, way harder.
Right.
And they've been wrong in their forecast here in the Twin Cities for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, this is true.
Okay, so the interesting thing, and I make a point in my article about this, is one of our local weather persons who writes for the paper is always talking about global warming. In fact, today he had more about it in his little blurb. And when it comes to predicting the local forecast, he admits that there's such complexity that it's never going to be a perfect science. There's always uncertainty, and they cannot be sure about it. But the same guy who knows he cannot know for sure tomorrow's weather is absolutely certain that he knows what the climate is and what it's going to be for the next however many years. And he actually claims that he knows that humans creating carbon dioxide are causing the climate to warm. And I know for a fact that this man cannot know that. He cannot know that, and he should know that he cannot know it. So the question is, why is he certain? And I'm not saying he's not a smart guy. So why is a smart guy believing in absurdity? That's the question we need to ask, because you take that guy, multiply times billions of people on the earth, we've got a whole planet full of people believing the doctrine of global warming as if it were a religious tenet that they're willing to die for.
This is true. This is seen in government. It's seen in the popular culture. It's seen in entertainment, and it's seen in advertising. It has permeated our society, this doctrine and this religion. You said it yourself very well. You're a bad person if you contribute to this problem, and you're not going to do anything about it.
Exactly. Now, what Essex and McKendrick talk about is what they call official science. Okay? And they say that you need to know the difference between science and official science, or you won't understand what's going on. Now, I just watched a DVD on this topic that you loaned me, Todd.
Right.
Great DVD, and it confirms basically what these guys say in their book, the same arguments, the same issues. And they talk about how these panels get assigned, whether it's by the United Nations or the United States government, whoever. They create a panel of people that are hired to give them advice about science, because the people making decisions, they don't know science.
They know nothing.
They don't know what a differential equation is and fluid dynamics and all the stuff that you need to know to understand climate. Mm-hmm. So they get together a panel, and as it was showing on the DVD, some of these people are told what they're supposed to believe.
Right.
And real scientists that know better just drop out because they don't want anything to do with it.
I could give you personal experience. Now, I work in government, in transportation, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a lot to do with roadway weather and traffic and reporting conditions. I was at a conference in Boulder, Colorado a year ago, hosted by the National Weather Service, a branch of theirs. There were professional meteorologists who, at lunch break, naturally we're going to talk about global warming, couldn't believe that there was a program here to promote this sky is falling, we better do something quick about global warming.